You probably believe the German Tiger was the apex predator of the battlefield and that the Soviet T-34 was a miracle of engineering. You are completely wrong. The history books and movies have sold you a lie wrapped in propaganda and nostalgia. They show you the highlight reels but conveniently ignore the transmission failures, the spontaneous engine fires, and the crews boiling alive in steel coffins. We are about to tear down the idols of armored warfare. These machines were not masterpieces. They were logistical nightmares and engineering disasters that killed more of their own crews than the enemy did. The real disaster is waiting for you at number 1. Number 5. The Sherman Firefly. Enthusiasts love to drool over this British modification of the American Sherman. The legend says it was the great equalizer, the only tank capable of knocking out a tiger at long range. That was the promise. A 17-pounder gun strapped to a reliable chassis. On paper, it looks brilliant. In reality, it was a rush job that compromised everything that made the Sherman good. To fit that massive anti-tank gun into a turret ring designed for a much smaller weapon, the British engineers had to hack the tank apart. The radio had to be cut out and welded into an armored box on the outside of the hull, leaving the crew deaf to the world. The breech of the gun was so large it had to be mounted sideways. The loader did not just have a difficult job. He had to be a contortionist. Every time the gun fired, the muzzle flash was so bright it temporarily blinded the gunner, and the dust cloud gave away their position to every German within 5 miles. It was a glass cannon that sacrificed crew survival for punch. As one British tanker dryly noted, it was like stuffing a howitzer into a phone booth. If you think a blinded crew is bad, wait until you see the Russian death trap at number 4. Number 4, the T-34. Put down your pitchforks and listen. Yes, the T-34 had sloped armor. Yes, it was produced in the thousands. But to call it a good tank is an insult to the word quality. This machine is the definition of overrated. The propaganda tells you it was a rugged beast that shrugged off German shells. The reality is that in 1941, most of them were lost because they simply broke down before ever seeing a German. The transmission was so crude that drivers had to keep a sledgehammer next to the seat just to smash the gear lever into place. The early models had a 2-man turret, which meant the commander had to command, aim, load the gun, and fire, all while having zero visibility because the optics were made of polished mud. Most of these tanks did not even have radios. They went into battle deaf, dumb, and blind, relying on hand signals that nobody could see through the smoke. The welds were often so poor that water leaked in when it rained, shorting out the electrical systems. One Soviet general admitted that their tank losses were not due to enemy fire, but due to the fact that their tanks were built by unskilled laborers freezing to death in unroofed factories. But if you think Russian crudeness was the problem, wait until you see German over-engineering at number 3. Number 3. The Tiger One. Here it is. The legend. The icon. The tank that every video game player worships. And it is arguably the biggest waste of resources in military history. The Tiger was supposed to be an invincible breakthrough tank. What the Wehrmacht actually got was a 60-ton paperweight that spent more time in the repair depot than on the front line. The engineering on this thing was not genius, it was narcissistic. The interleaved road wheels were a mechanic's worst nightmare. To change one inner wheel, you had to remove 4 outer wheels. In the Russian winter, the mud and snow would pack between these wheels and freeze solid overnight. The next morning, the great German war machine was immobilized by ice, sitting there like a statue waiting to be bombed. The transmission was woefully inadequate for the weight, meaning any driver who was not gentle would strip the gears instantly. It guzzled fuel at a rate that a resource-starved Germany could not afford. Bridges collapsed under it. Recovery vehicles could not tow it. One German commander remarked that he feared his own maintenance battalion more than the Russians because at least the Russians occasionally missed. And yet, there was a tank even more fragile than the Tiger. Number 2. The Panther. Military historians often call the Panther the first main battle tank and claim it was the best design of the war. These people are looking at spreadsheets, not battlefield reports. The Panther was a rush job, pushed into service before it was finished to meet a deadline for the Battle of Kursk. The result was a catastrophe. The first batch of Panthers did not even make it to the battle. 2 of them caught fire while rolling off the train. The engine compartment was sealed so tight for deep wading that the engine overheated and ignited fuel leaks almost immediately. But the real killer was the final drive. The final drives were made of inferior metal and snapped on average every 150 kilometers. That is not a tank. That is a disposable pillbox. The turret rotation was linked to the engine speed, so if the driver stopped, the gunner could not traverse the turret to engage a target. The side armor was so thin that Soviet anti-tank rifles could punch right through it. It was a beautiful, sleek, technological disaster that killed its crews with mechanical incompetence. As Guderian noted, the Panther burned with a distinctive flame, usually before the enemy even fired a shot. But if the Panther was a tragedy, number 1 is a farce. Number 1. The King Tiger. This is the ultimate expression of the Third Reich's delusion. The Tiger II, or King Tiger, represents everything wrong with Nazi military philosophy. Bigger is better. Heavier is invincible. It was a lie that cost thousands of lives. By 1944, Germany was retreating. They needed mobile, reliable, fuel-efficient, defensive weapons. Instead, they built a 70-ton monster that could barely move. The King Tiger was powered by the same engine used in the much lighter Panther, which was already overstressed. In the King Tiger, that engine was screaming for mercy. The power-to-weight ratio was pathetic. The tank could technically reach road speeds of 38 kilometers per hour, but doing so would cause the engine to explode or the transmission to disintegrate. Cross-country mobility was non-existent. If a King Tiger went off-road in soft ground, it sank. It was too wide for rail tunnels and too heavy for 90% of European bridges. This meant that the strategic mobility of heavy tank battalions was zero. They had to be unloaded miles from the front and drive there, burning precious fuel that Germany did not have. The armor was thick, yes, but by late 1944, the quality of German steel had plummeted due to a lack of molybdenum. When hit by large-caliber Soviet shells, the armor did not. If you enjoyed this, tap like and subscribe. It really helps. And drop a quick comment telling us where you're watching from. The United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, or anywhere else in the world. Your reply helps the video reach more people just like you.